Welcome back. The news in details. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held phone talks on Monday with Chinese President Xi Jinping. During the talks, President al-Sisi said that the Egyptian-Chinese relations have received strong momentum, adding that Egypt is keen on boosting ties in all fields. Al-Sisi reiterated Egypt's keenness on enhancing cooperation as part of the Road and Belt Initiative in a way that achieves the interests of the two states. President al-Sisi also expressed Egypt's appreciation to China for sending coronavirus vaccine doses as a gift to the Egyptian people. For his part, China's president expressed willingness to convey his country's expertise to Egypt in addition to providing it with COVID-19 vaccine. Meanwhile, the Chinese president also hailed Egypt's developmental and economic progress during the past period despite the coronavirus pandemic. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said on Monday that Egypt and the United States enjoy special strategic ties. He also expressed keenness on the continuation of cooperation in all fields. al-Sisi noted that cooperation in the military field has continued for decades in a way that helped strengthen the Egyptian-US cooperation in facing common challenges in the region. This came during the president's meeting with the commander of the US Central Command, General Kenneth McKenzie. The meeting was attended by Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, General Mohammed Farid. McKenzie said that the United States is keen on continuing coordination and consultation with Egypt on regional issues as part of these strong military ties. He noted that those ties are key to facing challenges to stability and security in the region. He also pointed to Egypt's pivotal role in supporting peace and stability and in combating terrorism and extremist ideologies. The meeting covered the two countries' cooperation in the military and security fields and in combating terrorism, as well as joint military exercise and exchanging expertise. The two sides also discussed issues of mutual concern in the Middle East and Africa. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi directed to increase land reclamation in Tushka and to depend on means compatible with the nature of the land and environment conditions there. President al-Sisi also instructed to boost integration among the concerned sectors to achieve the state's strategic goal of adding new areas to Egypt's agricultural lands. The president's directives came during his meeting on Monday with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and a number of ministers to follow up the executive report of land reclamation projects in the New Valley in Tushka. Presidential spokesman Bassam Radi said that the meeting tackled means of upgrading cotton manufacturing systems in Egypt to benefit from the competitive privileges in cotton production at a global level, regarding its high quality and good reputation across the international markets. In this regard, al-Sisi called for expanding the lands of cotton agriculture to meet the industrial needs and enlarge the added value of the Egyptian cotton. The Arab Parliament convened on Monday, headed by President Adel bin Abdulrahman al-Assoumi. During the session, the Arab Human Rights Monitoring Body was launched. A protocol was also signed between the Arab Parliament and the House of Representatives. In his speech, al-Assoumi said that one of the main tasks of the Arab Parliament is to protect human rights. He also expressed appreciation for Egypt for hosting the Palestinian dialogue to achieve reconciliation among different Palestinian parties. Also addressing the session was the chairperson of the high-level advisory group on counter-terrorism at the Inter-Parliamentary Union, IPU, Reinhold Lopatka. Lopatka said that despite the defeat of Daesh terrorist group, many families are still threatened by the group. He called for drawing plans to uproot extremism. Lopatka called on the Arab Parliament to help in efforts to combat terrorism in the region. Meanwhile, Parliament Speaker Councillor Hanafi Gebeli said that the Arab nation is in a turning point and is facing serious challenges to its security. He noted that the Palestinian cause remains a priority to the Arab world. Meanwhile, the Arab Parliament signed a joint cooperation protocol with the IPU, the Inter-Parliamentary Union to Combat Terrorism, Extreme Thought and Fight for Human Rights and Women Issues. Minna Dessouky was there and filed in this report.
The Arab Parliament held its third session in the presence of His Excellency Adel ibn Abdurrahman al-Assoumi, the head of the Arab Parliament, His Excellency Hanafi Gebeli, the head of the House of Representatives, and the presence of His Excellency Reinhold Lupatka, the chairman of the Counter-Terrorism Committee of Inter-Parliamentary Union.
I joined this meeting of the Assembly of the Arab Parliament in my capacity as chairman of the high-level advisory group on countering terrorism and violent extremism, which is a group which coordinates the work of IPU. IPU is International Parliamentarian Union. We are an umbrella organization of 179 parliaments and the United Nations. The United Nations have a leading role here in the fight against terrorism, and as you know, the Arab world is the most affected one of terrorist attacks. So we want to work together and to start to prevent terrorism. So we have to have in focus young people, speaking of education, speaking of social media, and there's human rights, and there's a lot of work we have to do, and we want to do it together, and this is the beginning of this cooperation.
During a speech, Al-Assoumi announced the launch of the Arab Observatory for Human Rights as an Arab mechanism to monitor the situation in the Arab countries. He welcomed the Arab Parliament to take a firm stance to stop the terrorist crimes carried out by the Houthis. I'm honored to attend the third session of the Arab Parliament, which discussed combating terrorism, extreme thoughts, and fighting for human rights and women's issues. With a number of leaders, ambassadors, former foreign ministers, we exchanged experiences, we exchanged our visions and remarks on this issue. We listened to the dialogues that unleashed our potentials. An additional important step was the signing of a joint cooperation protocol between the Arab Parliament and the Inter-Parliamentary Union to combat terrorism, extreme thoughts, and fight for human rights and women issues. Al-Assoumi praised the role of the Arab Parliament and referred to his meeting with His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and his full support to the Arab Parliament. Efforts are exerted by the Arab Parliament in supporting the issues of the Arab countries and defending the role of the Arab diplomat in solving the problems of the Arab world. From the headquarters of the Arab League, Minna Dessouky, Nile TV International.